Status on the derelict? Admiral Soren Kerr's voice cracked through the bridge interface, his mandibles half tensed in irritation. He stood motionless at the apex of the command arc, facing the curved viewport where the drifting hull of the Terran vessel hung like a dead insect caught in molasses. Tactical Officer Vel Dross tapped his data lattice, pulling orbital scans into focus. No rotational power, minimal grav cycle sustaining internal containment, no propulsion readings, structural collapse along port side, sections C through F have vented. Signal beacon is analog, coded in pre-fraction Earth distress standards. Kerr flexed the digits of his lower hands. You're telling me this thing has been out here for cycles without attracting anyone's attention? It's barely broadcasting. If we hadn't pivoted during the orbital sweep, Dross hesitated, then cleared his throat. We wouldn't have seen it at all. A gust of filtered air whispered across the command deck, carrying the scent of recycled coolant and oxidized wiring. From the viewing span, the freighter hung crooked in the orbital path of Sargon IV's outer hemisphere. Its panels were scorched, not in a pattern of weapons impact, but like sections had simply peeled off under stress, aged, exposed, detached, as though the ship had died long before anyone noticed. Pull up internal schematic estimation. Run a volumetric mass consistency check, Kerr ordered, stepping forward. I want to know if they're hiding something. Dross hesitated again. Sir, mass alignment appears authentic, nothing anomalous in density variation. Kerr narrowed his upper eyes. Then tell me why it's still generating enough power to keep gravity, but not life support. Either it's half dead or we're being teased. The bridge's display panels shimmered as they projected a coarse outline of the vessel, roughly 340 meters in length. Civilian freighter chassis, labeled Obdurate, a Terran ship registry known to Earth's old trading routes, decommissioned years ago. Yet here it floated, intact enough to ask questions. Recommend boarding teams Alpha through Theta, full atmospheric gear. Dross, I want visual feeds on every entry point before a boot crosses the hull. Kerr turned to his XO, Command Talrek. And bring the scanning buoy closer. If there's even a single anomalous spike in thermal reactivity, I want to see it unfold in real time. Outside, the Vicarian fleet began its maneuver. 8 haulers, 2 escort frigates, and 1 cruiser repositioned to form a sweep arc around the derelict. Maneuvering thrusters fired, burning deep red against the void. Boarding skiffs detached in clean formation, each one humming with armor-piercing claws meant for hull gripping. Within the command cradle of the nearest skiff, Unit Captain Orn Telm adjusted his visor and peered through the forward slit of reinforced glass. His breathing was slow, deliberate. The Obdurate didn't move. It didn't flare. It simply drifted. No rotation, no jostle from gravity interaction. Just motionless stasis in planetary orbit. He flicked a switch on his comms node. Team Theta, your north side. Set anchor points, full breach pattern. Secondary pulse scans ready? Affirmative, came the voice of one of the breach specialists. No electrostatic discharge detected. Airlock isn't pressurized, so we'll enter on manual sequence. Good, no surprises. As they approached, the hull surface became visible through the view slit. Panels looked like burned scales, peeling and layered, but too neat to be accidental. No flaking, no scoring in random angles. There was a symmetry to the damage, unnatural in decay. Telm frowned. That's not weathering. Dross, are you seeing this from the top deck? On the flagship, Vel Dross brought up live feed from Theta Team's approach. He zoomed in, sharp in contrast, and paused. I see it. Then say it, Kerr snapped. Dross looked away from the feed. Sir, the degradation patterns are uniform. Controlled distress, not wear. Those panels were removed. Kerr leaned forward. You think someone staged this? I think it was made to look worse than it is. Kerr's hands coiled behind his back. Then we find out why. From within the Obdurate's airlock, breach systems hissed. Manual clamps engaged. Seals twisted and whined against decompressed pressure. One by one, the boarding team entered the first corridor, rifles drawn, suit diagnostics green. The first thing that struck them wasn't the emptiness. It was the purity. The walls were clean, not sanitized, not freshly painted, but entirely devoid of use. Like no foot had pressed these floors, no hand smudged the rails. The lighting was dim, but not flickering. Cool blues cast across the corridor from hidden paneling beneath floor grates. Movement? Telm whispered. None. Scanners reading stabilized heat sinks. Not a single vent shaft open. Another officer knelt by the floor, touching the tiles with gloved fingers. Mag seal pattern. Industrial, not civilian grade. This ship's had structural reinforcement. Dross's voice cracked over the channel. Obdurate wasn't classified for combat logistics. It was a merchant route carrier. Then someone lied, Telm muttered, eyes scanning the unbroken hallway. Proceed to secondary compartment. Logging feeds now. On the flagship, Kerr watched the footage from each unit. No debris, no body, no corrosion from long-duration vacuum exposure. It was too quiet, too ready. He gestured toward the comms officer. Request a thermal composite of the full deck range. I want deeper resolution scans, not this surface-level garbage. The officer nodded, fingers sweeping across the console, rerouting sensor arrays. We'll need 30 seconds to resolve imaging at the requested depth. A faint shimmer rippled across the freighter's ventral side. Dross blinked. Sir, there's... Before he could finish, the obdurate rotated. No thrust, no inertia. Just an angled shift in gravitational response, like something beneath the hull twisted on command and repositioned its core mass. The maneuver was too efficient for reaction-based propulsion. It reoriented without noise, without heat, without anything. Kerr stepped closer to the screen, all four of his eyes narrowing. That's not possible. From inside the ship, Telm's team turned sharply. Did you feel that? The deck had shifted, not from impact, not from atmospheric drag. The walls adjusted pressure subtly, like internal pistons realigning weight load in anticipation. Outside, the boarding skiffs reported strain in their magnetic anchors, and on the flagship's tactical display, the obdurate's signature changed, very slightly. Its thermal shadow deepened. Internal density signatures stabilized, reconfigured, and redistributed. A warning flashed red across the flagship console. Mass differential detected. Subsurface core activation. Pull them back, Kerr barked. Too late. Within the obdurate's forward bay, something clicked into place. Deploy bypass drills. There's no conventional lock on this hatch. Orntelm's command rang into the boarding team's shared channel as the panel before them remained unresponsive to override pings. He reached for the manual interface, dragging fingertips across the matte black surface that bore no seams, no keypads, only a faint indentation shaped like a Terran insignia. The hiss of the atmospheric seal depressurizing carried a texture, not sound, but vibration. It ran through their boots like a soft current, alive and indifferent. Telm looked down. Dustless floor, not even a trace of displacement. Why's the entry system flush? One of the team's rear techs muttered. There's no pressure differential, yet it acts like we're entering a sealed vault. Doesn't matter. We breach on internal, Telm responded. A sharp magnetic drill whirled as the hatch released, unveiling a corridor dimly lit by embedded vertical strips. Pale cyan running along the lower walls. Curved corners too deliberate to be part of standard freighter design. There was no cargo netting, no cable bracers, no bulkhead identifiers. He stepped in first. Back aboard the Vicarian flagship Variskal, Dross monitored the boarding telemetry from a central tactical node. The heads-up displays blinked updates from 6 units now inside the obdurate. Data feeds flickered across his station. Bio readings stable, environmental scans flat, motion sensors negative. What unsettled him wasn't the lack of movement. It was the ship's composure. Every new compartment streamed with a strange consistency, as if built by algorithm rather than crew. These schematics don't match our archive, he murmured. Admiral Kerr didn't turn. Explain. Dross expanded the corridor's 3D rendering, adjusting angles with clawed fingers. Interior walling is layered with polymer latticework, unregistered in any commercial blueprint. And the lighting? It's integrated beneath the insulation. No power access points visible. Kerr exhaled through clenched mandibles. This isn't a freighter. No, sir, it's wearing one. He glanced toward the adjacent feed, which pulsed with encrypted overlays from Earth systems. His screen flagged a curious echo, a faint electromagnetic loop repeating at 12-second intervals. It didn't interfere with communications, but it was there, consistent, intentional. "Look at this," one of the Theta Squad members whispered. He crouched beside a bulkhead partition just before a sealed door. Embedded into the frame was a line, barely the width of a fingernail, glowing with steady amber, tracing geometric shapes that bore no obvious function. "Don't touch it," Telm warned, stepping past. "Visuals only until confirmed on material." Another trooper swept a scanner across a vent panel. "No dust. Zero microbial deposits. It's like we're inside a fabrication model, not a used vessel." "That's what worries me," Telm muttered. From the ceiling, automated mounts tracked them, not moving, not responding, but embedded like dormant vertebrae waiting for motion. The air held no weight. It didn't press or shift. It felt designed. "Any noise up ahead?" "None. Still negative on kinetic movement, no thermal variance." They reached an intersection where 4 passageways met. Each was identical. Each pathway curved slightly, as if warping outward in concentric rings. "Where's the core junction?" Telm asked, tapping his pad. "Ship's schematics are failing to triangulate it," came the reply. "Navigation keeps resetting local positioning." He narrowed his gaze. "We're inside something that rewrites its own layout." Yarnvek watched from far above, deep inside Black Spire's Earthside core relay. Obdurate's onboard architecture was his to monitor, but not to control. That had been the point. He stood in front of a vertical relay shaft that shimmered with optical pulses, live relay codes bouncing across light-infused conduits. His breath was even, eyes tracking every flick of data on the neural channel. "External motion confirmed," the system AI noted. "Command team has breached secondary hallway grid. Current behavioral response, passive observation." Yarn's fingers twitched against the terminal's side plate. "Hold pattern theta. Let them advance deeper. Core event protocol at 26%. Continue environmental nullification." On his console, a render of the obdurate glowed, but it was the vessel beneath it, the layered hidden compartments, the rearranged corridors, the erased entries that held his focus. It wasn't a ship anymore. It was an environment. Back inside the obdurate, Telm's squad pushed through the next hatch. They entered a wide chamber shaped like a half-cylinder, walls smooth, no paneling, no consoles. Only an object suspended in the center, a hollow column of spiraled steel-like alloy. Rotating slowly, held by magnetic nodes none of their scans could locate. "What in the deep vector is this?" murmured one of the engineers. "Don't approach it." Telm raised a hand. The room didn't echo. Their steps failed to return sound. Their voices landed but didn't carry. And still, every system insisted no anomaly existed. From behind them, the hatch sealed. The click was quiet, but final. "Team Delta, confirm rear egress is unlocked." Pause. "Negative. Command. Manual controls just failed. Hatch seal appears permanent." Droz caught the shift instantly on the feed. "Admiral, rear corridors are locking. This isn't containment. It's consumption." Kerr growled. "Bring them out. All teams." "No, sir," Droz said carefully. "Not yet. We pull now. We reveal our nerves. Let's see what it's designed to do with confidence." Kerr turned, studying Droz as though he'd never seen the tactician before. "You think this is a demonstration?" "I think it's a test to see who flinches first." Yarnvek remained fixed to his console. The crew aboard the obdurate moved according to projections. Each response cataloged, each step noted. The AI logged their stress markers, behavioral hesitations, team spacing, voice modulation. "Deploy corridor phase ripple," he whispered. "I want their layout assumptions shattered." "Command accepted," the AI responded. And deep inside the ship, the internal chambers shifted. Unfelt, unheard, but definitely not unmapped. Inside the boarding zone, Telm reeled as the ceiling lights flickered, not strobing, but reconfiguring spatially. What had been flat illumination bent with new contours. "Team Echo," he called. "Do you have a corridor status?" "Negative. Corridor looped. We returned to a point we left 2 minutes ago." He turned toward the wall-mounted markings from before. Gone. Only smooth surface now. He touched his helmet. Begin drop markers, carve, scratch, anything. We verify position through physical tags. Sir, said a voice near the back, you need to see this. One of the corridor cameras, barely thumb size, was panning. Very slowly, not recording, tracking. Confirm movement authorization, Telm ordered. There's no propulsion signature. That unit's been dormant. Not anymore. The view feed from the command vessel blinked once. Dross leaned forward. Admiral, he said carefully, they're not the ones watching anymore. Delta 2, confirm junction pass-through. Log your markers again, manually. Orn Telm's voice was tight, stripped of intonation, routed across 3 encrypted channels simultaneously. His visor fed a panoramic composite of 8 units scattered across Obdurate's corridors, all of them out of sync. Junction logged, but, came the reply, fractured mid-transmission. Repeat that, Telm snapped. No answer. Comms glitch, rerouting backup, one of the rear techs offered. The corridors dimmed, not like a flickering bulb or power fluctuation, more like the light had been told to retract itself. Lines of cyan that once edged every wall and floor dimmed from the center outward, retracting like veins freezing in real time. The glow dissolved, leaving only the ambient pulse of their helmet-mounted optics. Helmet lenses auto-adjusted for low light, switching to thermal overlays. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Yet Telm's readings showed every team member accounted for, at least by vitals. Check lighting fallback on cycle deck 3, he ordered. Don't assume environmental loss. This could be staged. The heads-up display now highlighted shrinking zones. Entire paths behind each squad dimmed out of existence. Not just darker, but reclassified as structurally unreachable. Captain, said one of his point men, tone narrowed, the corridor we passed 10 meters back? It's gone. Not blocked. Gone. There's a storage wall where there was a turn. Document it. Deploy your magnetic anchors and hold grid. Boots clunked down metallic stabilizers, small triangular grips used to mark team orientation and spacing. As they attached to the flooring, a new reading appeared on Telm's feed. Directional drift detected. Internal grav adjusters were reassigning their walk vector. He drew his sidearm. Not for combat, there was nothing to shoot at, but weight in the hand was focus. And in this creeping labyrinth, focus was lifeline. Up in the command node of Veraskal, Veldross's claws paused above the sensor array. Are you seeing this feed variation? He asked sharply. The analytics officer nearby nodded slowly. Team Grid reports real-time divergence. Physical layouts not matching scan history. Whatever they're walking through, it isn't static. Dross adjusted the visual on the central heads-up panel. 3 red icons blinked. No signal. Not jammed. Gone. Admiral, Teams 5, 8, and 11 are no longer responding. Kerr paced toward the platform, bracing his upper limbs on the side rail. Are you telling me we lost 37 personnel in 10 seconds? No hostile signatures, no thermal bursts, no kinetic activity. The ship absorbed them. Kerr stared at the Obdurate's live model. This is no decoy. Dross didn't answer. He already knew. Where is the hatch? Telm asked, more to himself than the squad. What had been their access point now resembled an unbroken wall, smooth, black, reflective. The entry they documented was missing. His HUD confirmed positional deviation. Team Theta, he called. Cross-check location. Overlay your logs. The wall reformed. It's different. Materials new. It wasn't here 10 minutes ago. Test it. The soldier knocked once. A sound rang out. Not the clink of alloy, but something deeper, like tapping a pressure membrane. Nothing we've logged so far has that composition, said the engineer near him. It's reactive. How do you know? Because it just warmed up. Telm's visor detected it too. The surface temperature had risen by 2 degrees in response to touch. Not from heat transfer, but from internal regulation. This wasn't metal. It was adapting. Yarnvek watched as the Obdurate's memory grid pulsed with movement trails. Every squad's behavior tracked like current lines across a neural map. Heat vectors, microvocal shifts, stress-induced biofeedback. His AI evaluated them not for threat assessment, but for psychological modeling. Lock corridor spans 17A through 17G. Begin phase draw. Leave anchor points in place. Executing, the AI confirmed. The vessel's layout shifted again. Captain Telm, something's wrong with my helmet, a soldier whispered behind him. What's it doing? It's too quiet. The words hung for a beat. We're inside a sealed ship, Telm said. It should be quiet. There's no noise at all. My breath, the suit's regulators, the pad readouts. I don't hear anything. One of the others quickly adjusted his own mic. Same. Internal audio loop is dead. Visual feed's fine. Tactile pressure normal. But no auditory feedback. Test your pressure seals, Telm commanded. They did. Everything read normal. But their sound had vanished. The system wasn't broken. It had been muted. Droz watched another signal vanish. No spike, no broadcast. Just gone. He checked the time code. 0 latency. Team Theta just dropped. Kerr didn't blink. How many are left? 76. But at this rate, contact Earth. Sir? I want to know what else that ship ever docked with. If this is some kind of viral payload? No, Admiral, Dross interrupted, eyes sharp. This isn't a virus. It's architectural. Kerr leaned in. You think the ship is the payload? I think the ship isn't a vessel. It's a scenario. Back on Obdurate, Telm's vision sharpened as his HUD adjusted to manual optical parameters. Nothing auto-fed, nothing updated. The AI wasn't just withdrawing, it was watching their reliance. His foot hit something. He looked down. One of the anchor triangles, deployed earlier, was now twisted, its points curled inward. Not damaged. Folded. Deliberately. He knelt beside it. The floor plate beneath had changed. What was smooth alloy now resembled skin, etched in geometric ridges, like tendon bundled into functional symmetry. He reached for his scanner. It pulsed once, then failed. No warning, just total black. On the Veriscal, Dross stood frozen. Admiral, Command Lead Telm just flatlined. No trauma signal? Kerr barked. None. He's not dead? No. Dross pointed to the last image captured. The system just stopped admitting he exists. Yarnvek exhaled through his nose. Not victory, measurement. AI, he said. What's the current observed delay between internal corridor phase and external reaction? 11.3 seconds, trending shorter. Good, Jarn whispered. That's fear. Strip the loop down to waveform. Layer cross frequencies against the Sargon 4 comnet. Right now, Veldros barked as another segment of the Obdurate's feed vanished from their heads-up matrix. His claws hovered above the decrypt lattice, but he didn't touch it. The last 2 decoding attempts had triggered systemic echoes, false reverberations that forced protocol resets. Already processing, said the signal officer behind him. Same loop, repeating every 12 seconds. Subharmonic embedding detected. It's not noise. Dross leaned closer, letting the tonal ranges spool out visually across the screen. It's a false SOS message, wrapped in its own death certificate. The waveform was jagged, clipped ends, degraded lows, but deliberate. There were pauses that felt unnatural, like a voice remembering how to speak after forgetting the alphabet. Amplify the base layer. I want the root construct raw. The feed adjusted. Across the flagship's comm deck, a sound rose. Not audio, but data shaped into voice-like patterns. The ship wasn't broadcasting a plea. It was telling a story. Far above the Earth's terminator line, within the orbital chassis of Blackspire Relay 9, Rail Crux monitored outgoing static with unusual stillness. He stood with both hands behind his back as the rotating heads-up array displayed a scatter of star maps and interference bleed. To anyone else, it looked like a ghost transmission from an ancient Terran relic. But Crux knew better. The distress loop hadn't originated from the Obdurate. It had originated from Earth. He pulled a side node from the terminal spine and plugged it into the relay column. The signal sharpened instantly. The repeating message, broken, degraded, almost skeletal, resolved enough for meaning to thread through the static. Freighter Obdurate, non-responsive since 2:03.3. Systems fail. Drift initiated. Request. Recover. Obdo. Then the loop snapped back. Every 12 seconds. Not a cry for help, but a decoy lullaby. Crux didn't smile. He recentered the feed on the master relay board and flicked a copper switch embedded in a ridge of dark glass. Level 2 containment override confirmed, the AI voice responded. Transmission now isolated to target-only encryption. Collateral bounce negated. Begin verbal distortion protocol. Leave enough artifact to suggest damage, but not enough to betray origin. Executing. Crux turned away from the screen and looked out through the layered viewport slats. The Earth floated calmly beneath him, indifferent, as it should be. They didn't need to shout anymore. Now they whispered with intent. Run that again, Kerr growled. What do you mean the voice isn't Terran? Dross didn't flinch. It began as Terran, but somewhere in the overlay stack, the linguistic curvature bends wrong. Tonal syntax shifts. It's been layered with distortion patterns meant to simulate degradation, but too cleanly. The Admiral narrowed his top eyes. So it's manufactured decay? Yes, a falsified loop, purpose-built to mimic a wrecked vessel begging for retrieval. Kerr turned toward the heads-up tactical field. The obdurate floated in the same place, same orientation, but now half their fleet's boarding teams were missing, and the others were stalled behind closed doors and corrupted navigation zones. I want someone to explain why a cargo ship knows how to fake language erosion. Dross ran a fingertip across his own neck. It doesn't. That ship's not faking anything. It's reciting a narrative. This is performance. The Admiral didn't respond immediately. Then, show me the loop's timestamp integrity. Dross blinked. Why? Because if it doesn't decay over time, it's not just a loop, it's a script. Seconds passed. The data displayed. The loop was exactly 12.032 seconds long, identical in byte sequence. Not one drifted beat. This is bait, Kerr said, and we bit down with both jaws. Inside Obdurate, the temperature in corridor segment 5A increased by 3 degrees Celsius in under 20 seconds. Team Varan, last reported at the core cylinder junction, hadn't moved in 11.3 minutes. Their vitals pulsed green, but no audio, no cam, no telemetry. Telm was gone. The highest-ranking field officer remaining was Lieutenant Idrak Vorn, who now stared at the wall where his map overlay used to be. Vorn to Variskal, copy? No static, no distortion, just blank. His squad moved carefully, not because of what they saw, there was nothing, but because they no longer trusted what they stepped on. The floors were warm, not heated by systems, but body warm. It reminded him of factory-assembled nerve gel, living material taught to behave like infrastructure. Drop a tap reader, he ordered. One of the techs dropped a microspike into the floor. It melted, no burn, no reaction, just swallowed. Commander, we have a situation, Vorn whispered. Back in Black Spire, Crux walked a slow circle around the transmission tower. Yarn, the ship's responding faster now. He didn't have to speak loudly. Yarnvek's image materialized on the crystalline wall segment in front of him, not via plasma or light projection, but through a phased light tile interface that didn't emit. It adjusted. Vec, the transmission is being parsed too cleanly. They're onto the message structure. They're meant to be, Yarn replied. Won't that trigger their fleet-wide fallback? They won't run, not yet. They don't know what they're running from, and warships don't retreat from wreckage. Crux tilted his head. So what's next? Yarn's eyes didn't move. We alter the message's rhythm, make it unpredictable, just enough for their decryption matrix to struggle, but not enough to be obvious. You want them to chase the noise? I want them to think they're just one line of code away from answers. On the Variskal, the comms officer jolted upright. New variant detected. Kerr turned. Show me. Dross stared at the feed as the loop twisted. Same voice, but now the timing staggered. The pauses no longer matched. Emphasis drifted across new syllables. Freighter obdurate, unheard, since 203, drift, obdu. It wasn't breaking, it was evolving. Kerr stood completely still. Where is the message originating from now? The comms officer hesitated. Sir, it's not coming from the ship. Then where? The officer swallowed. It's being reflected through the ship, like a lens. Dross's jaw clenched. It's not transmitting. It's playing back what we want to hear. Rail Crux nodded at the AI core in Black Spire. Begin noise layering. The machine complied, introducing new inflections into the loop. Now it wasn't just distortion. It was a voice threading meaning into fragments. No single phrase clear, but implications soaked through every break. It sounded less like help, more like warning, but too late to interpret which. Disengage boarding. Now! Kerr finally gave the order, but before the comms officer could route it, every screen froze. All of them, on one frame. Why is the ship moving? Admiral Soren Kerr's tone had none of its usual command. It was short, clipped, mechanical, like his mind was racing faster than his jaw could match. Across the Vorskall's forward heads-up array, the obdurate had begun to rotate, slowly, without propulsion, without directional burn. It pivoted along its vertical axis with no warning, no momentum buildup, and no thrust vector trail. The change was unnatural. It was impossible. Navigation confirms rotation on pitch and yaw, Veldros called out, eyes locked to the screen. There's no thruster engagement. It's not correcting. It's repositioning. The ship now faced a completely new angle in orbital drift, angling downward toward the nearest planetary ring. The rotation wasn't random. It was deliberate. Kerr's secondary arms pressed against the tactical console, claws digging into the material as he barked. Retask orbital stabilizers. Adjust sweep vector. Get every hull-mounted railgun pointed at that wreck now. I can't. Control interface is non-responsive, a comms operator shouted. What? It's lagging. Commands input, but no feedback return. Kerr's antennae stiffened. That's not lag. That's override. The obdurate had become the center of gravitational alignment. Every fleet vessel surrounding it began adjusting automatically, caught in local mass assist behavior protocols, each ship subtly reacting to a center that refused to play dead anymore. Decouple navigation assistance protocols now, Dross commanded. Shut down auto-compensation. It's dragging the fleet into a realignment vector. On the outer ring of the fleet, frigate Galax suddenly shifted its orientation thrusters in a hard counterburst, trying to break pattern. It spun violently, then overcorrected, its inertia locked too long into the obdurate's shadow vector. A warning siren bled across the command deck. She's overriding inertial frames. Who authorized drift sync on Galax? No one. It's not synced. It's mimicking obdurate's motion cues. Kerr leaned forward, eyes fixed on the heads-up model. It's not drifting, it's conducting. On the freighter's bridge, Yarnvek monitored the external alignment map. Each icon shifted into correct orbital placement, 10 degrees here, 7 there, until every Vicarian vessel formed a spiraled net of misjudged symmetry. Frame lock complete, the AI confirmed. Their fleet no longer understands where center is. Good, Yarn replied flatly. Initiate bleed protocol. Begin introducing directional jitter to their stabilizers. 0.06 frequency modulation. Make it look like thruster jitter. Confirmed. Deploying interference ripple. Let them misdiagnose it. Back on Vorskall, Dross was now manually parsing stabilizer logs. These aren't mechanical faults, he said aloud. There's interference inside the fleet-wide coordination matrix, like it's being puppeted from inside. Kerr clenched his teeth. Is the obdurate generating a gravimetric field? Negative. No surge, no heat rise. It's mimicking alignment values and letting our ships copy them. It's faking our own fleet's voice back at us, Kerr muttered. One of the bridge engineers looked up sharply. Sir, the left wing of our support formation is now drifting at 0.7 divergence from program trajectory. They're matching the obdurate's arc. Without orders? Yes, Admiral. Kerr exhaled once. They're in formation, just not ours. At the edge of the spiral, Interceptor Halvex lit up its main thruster column, attempting to burn away from the unplanned vector net. The burn kicked hard, too hard. Without counterbalancing thrusters firing in sync, the vessel tipped, twisted, and lost gyro alignment. The ship spun out like a thrown spike, its stabilizers cut mid-cycle. From Veriskal, the heads-up feed tracked the descent. "They've lost spin control," Dross yelled. "Fire stabilization override. They've disabled manual acceptance." On screen, Halvex continued its tumble toward orbital decay. Kerr turned to the command pit. "Shut down all fleet-wide auto-interpolation. Cut all assistance tethering. I want every vessel operating independently." "Sir," came a quiet voice from the back. "What is it?" "The obdurate." It just paused. Everyone on deck turned to the forward display. The freighter had stopped spinning. Dead stop. No reversal, no inertia tail, just static. Frozen again, but not the same. Now its bow faced the exact center of the Vicarian fleet spread. Rail Crux watched the fleet data flood into Earth's Black Spire relay. "They're beginning to panic," he observed. "Expected," Jarn replied over the secure line, "but their formation integrity is already broken." "Stage the next rotation?" "Number let them reposition first. If they reset while under false assumptions, it'll tear their correction cycles apart." Crux nodded. "That'll force their own stabilizers to break alignment with each other." "Exactly," Jarn confirmed. "And once that happens, their ships will no longer agree on where center is." Kerr's voice cut through the bridge like a blade. "Pull the fleet back. Now break proximity and spread to defensive standoff." Orders relayed. Nothing happened. "Why aren't they moving?" he demanded. "Control lag again," one of the officers barked. "Commands are getting there, but they're counter-executing on arrival. Are you telling me our own systems are reversing our withdrawal?" "No, sir. I'm saying something is telling them to stay." Kerr slammed his hand against the railing. "Shut down the nav cores manually if you have to." "All vessels?" "Everyone." Dross moved to the engineering interface and began force routing manual overrides to the fleet-wide network. "Sir, do you see this?" Kerr followed his hand to the screen, a blinking indicator at the bottom of the fleet control display. "User override. Undefined source." "What the—" "It's not us," Dross said. "It's not Earth either." "Then who?" The icon blinked again, then vanished. And just as suddenly, the obdurate rotated one more time. 180 degrees. Its engines now faced the fleet. Still cold, still unlit, but aligned. Exactly. From within the rotating vessel's primary core, internal compartments locked into phase alignment. Jarn Vek observed as spatial targeting parameters lit up. No guidance systems, no turret deployment, just vector arcs, calculated through pattern, not propulsion. "Trajectory grids synced," the AI noted. Jarn didn't smile. "Now we wait for them to diagnose the wrong threat." On the bridge of Veriskal, Dross looked back at Kerr. "There's no logic to this. We're not being fired on. We're not being pushed. The ship just turned. Then what do you call this?" Dross stared at the heads-up overlay as his breath caught. The obdurate's rotation had reorganized their entire formation into a firing lane. "Telemetry confirms. Every target locked." Rail Crux's voice carried no tone, just function. He leaned toward the angled feed from Earth's upper stratospheric relay. "Execute phase delta." The transmission wasn't relayed through atmosphere or vacuum. It was embedded in code, pulsed through a compression loop buried beneath a radar blanket, and fired from a nullband relay. No flare, no detectable broadcast, no light signature. Inside Obdurate's core, the mechanism activated. Kinetic payload bays, concealed beneath non-reflective hull struts, rotated with surgical exactness. No fuel, no combustion. They required no ignition. Only magneto-rail induction triggers. The first batch of non-cavitated rods slid into position. Dense, sharpened, tungsten-carbon alloy rods. Roughly a meter long. Engineered not to explode but to puncture and keep moving. Relativistic weaponry wasn't made to hit hard. It was made to ignore armor. At 0.76 light speed, the first rods were released. They didn't fire. They vanished. And then ships began to tear. From the bridge of Veriskal, Dross spun toward the heads-up display as it fractured into cascading alerts. "Impact detected. Unknown origin." A screech of warnings split through the command rail. 6 ships across the fleet reported structural breaches within milliseconds. No weapon trails, no flash, no signal. Where are the warheads? Kerr demanded. There were none, Dross muttered. There's no detonation, just perforation. Aft of their cruiser, the Zorathan Spire was skewered clean through its main chassis. The rod had entered at the observation deck and exited beneath the secondary reactor housing. No fire, no debris, just two clean punctures and an empty rotation where bulk had once been. Kerr stared at the heads-up projection. A straight red line had been drawn through the ship, and it hadn't even wobbled. This is engineered murder, Dross whispered. Another alert, then three more. Fleet ships were dropping off status feeds, not from overload, but from air bleed and control loss. Their cores weren't breached. Their command systems were untouched. But their oxygen lines, reactor insulation, crew transport tubes, everything vulnerable, had been split with surgical indifference. Kerr stepped forward. Where is it launching from? Still triangulating, came the tech response. But they're tracking from within the obdurate's mid-deck. That thing's not a freighter, Kerr snapped. No, Dross replied. It's a test chamber. Inside Earth Command, Yarnvek watched as the first salvo registered completion. First cycle complete. No counter-response detected. Crux's voice returned over channel. Confirm full telemetry on the penetrations. Each strike logged. Minimal deviation. 2 ship hulls split midsection. 4 venting atmosphere. 1 rotating uncontrolled. Crux nodded. What about the flagship? Skimmed. 2 meters shy. That was intentional. You wanted them to feel it. I wanted them to calculate the line it missed by. The next wave launched before any alien ship could react. This time 12 rods. 12 vectors. Simultaneous. The obdurate's hull didn't recoil. There was no heat bloom, no vibration, only motion, fast enough to be invisible and slow enough to remain sub-relativistic for legal evasion protocols. In space, light-speed warfare wasn't about speed, it was about perception lag. Ships didn't die because they were hit. They died because they didn't see it coming. Aboard the Ferrixon Vale, crew members screamed into dead comms as their portside quarters buckled inward. No warning. The rod had struck at an oblique angle, entered through cargo shielding, and exited beneath the lower spine. 2 decks were gone. No explosion. No flames. Just steel, cleaved like dry fabric. Pull back the fleet, Kerr shouted. We can't, Dross replied. Auto-stabilizers still locked. Every ship is treating obdurate as center mass. Then disengage, Kerr barked. We tried. They don't accept manual command. Another line formed across the tactical display. A blinking red arc. Next volley in queue. Dross said nothing, his jaw clenched. He knew what it meant. The ship had already calculated who lived next. Earthside, Crux's relay ticked as each impact log updated. We're broadcasting no power signature. Their sensors are looking for beams, not rods. That's the flaw, Yarn said. They built doctrine around detection, not intuition. What about their flagship? Not yet. Why? Because Kerr's watching, Yarn replied, and the last thing he sees should be himself. Dross stared at the tactical feed. It's not random. What? Look. He pointed at the heads-up display. Every impact line intersects a secondary support vessel. Not command, not primary assault. They're trimming structure. Like testing blade edges before the final cut, Kerr said under his breath. The deck shook, not from motion, but from what had stopped existing on their flank. The Drasti coil had vanished from the feed. Its signal cut mid-log. No debris trail. No escape pods. Just a blank square. Kerr whispered to himself. Why that one? It was our only long-range comm repeater, Dross replied. They're isolating us. The Admiral closed his lower eyes. They're not just killing the fleet. They're building a message. In orbit, the obdurate rotated again, this time slowly. Just a few degrees, enough to face Variskal head-on. Inside, the final rod was locked, larger than the rest, shaped for center mass delivery. Target, primary command vessel. Trajectory, preloaded. Counter-reaction time, 0. Crux's voice whispered over Earth's channel. Send it. Yarn didn't blink. Firing. Only one final entry in the impact registry, and one vanishing dot on the Vicarian fleet grid. Initiate the decoy quarter. Trigger EM shadow rings across the remaining sector grid. Rail Crux issued the command from Earth's orbital spine, eyes tracking the reshaped kinetic telemetry. Around him, the heads-up displays formed a triangular sweep across the upper hemisphere, each blinking point no longer an enemy ship, but a pending movement marker. Yarnvek's voice came through clean. Confirming phase bleed distortion. We're drawing their exits into fire zones. All vessels in escape vector are being redirected. No burn signatures detected on obdurate? Negative. Still running passive. Yarn's words were precise. Flat. Crux leaned forward. Then they're flying toward an echo. Out near the edge of the shattered Vicarian formation, the Vernix fist ignited its thrusters at full thrust. It hadn't waited for orders. Most command lines were fragmented. Some captains were acting on instinct alone, others on panic. A dozen vessels had begun to withdraw from formation, and none of them moved in unison. Each one tried to break orbit in a unique direction. But every directional path was caught in distortion echoes cast by the obdurate. Not electronic jamming, not false navigation, just the way shadows bent near artificial gravity wells built to confuse threat acquisition systems. What they saw wasn't real. What they avoided wasn't the threat. The obdurate hadn't needed to chase them. They were guiding themselves. Back inside the ship's central cortex, Yarn monitored the gravitational halo signatures. Vector drift shows 91% compliance with false lanes. Remaining vessels compensating via short thrust corrections, still within trap boundary. Lock in arc range, Crux said. Done. Initiating passive impact cycle. There was no countdown. The rods had already been loaded. They simply hadn't been told to release. Until now. Aboard Vernix Fist, the command officer's last thought wasn't of fear. It was confusion. The vessel had just cleared the last sensor ping when a rod passed cleanly through the upper forward deck, carving a hole so fine the alarms didn't register for several seconds. The ship didn't detonate. It folded. Each support beam crumpled from the breach inward, compressing like drop scaffolding. By the time the pressure shield broke, the crew had already ceased function from deceleration trauma. Impact sequence complete, Yarn announced. Rail Crux didn't reply at first. He rotated the upper pane of the side console, revealing real-time renderings. Most of the Vicarian fleet was gone. Not shredded, not dissolved. Removed. The last 8 vessels had tried to reposition for coordinated withdrawal. 3 collided from panic. 2 shut down main reactors in desperation. The remaining 3, they disappeared off sensors mid-maneuver. Not cloaked, Crux asked. Not at all, Yarn replied. They were split at the grav core. There's no broadcast left to track. Crux tapped the panel with one knuckle. And yet, we didn't fire on a single command bridge. Intentional, Yarn said. Leave someone alive. It spreads better. Within Obdurate's AI core, the ship finalized its posture alignment. There were no victory declarations, no audible notifications. The internal systems returned to standby. Kinetic arrays retracted into shielded storage. Each control node powered down in reverse sequence, not shutdown. Dormancy. Mission complete. Yarn pulled up the timeline summary. Total engagement length, 11 minutes, 42 seconds. Confirmed vessel count, 46. Total payload used, 23 rods. Crux nodded once. Ratios better than simulations projected. Because panic spread faster than expected. They broke formation before their flank was even engaged. And you still say we weren't targeting their fleet? No, Yarn replied. We targeted their certainty. Dross gasped as another feed collapsed across the Verascal's interface. What's left? Kerr muttered, throat raw. 2 interceptors crippled. 1 destroyer partially maneuverable. All others are either neutralized or unresponsive. Can we reach any of them? No command confirmations received. We're transmitting, but they're not there to answer. Dross turned slowly toward the Admiral. Sir, I don't think we're in a battle anymore. What do you mean? We're in aftermath. At the edges of the wreckage zone, artificial gravity wells still pulsed with false telemetry. Each one was a vestige of the trap, engineered not to affect, but to distract. Vicarian scanners, unable to find mass centers or heat trails, kept looping back to dead ends. Those ships that still floated did so with no command. Those crews that still breathed didn't know which way was real. They had entered Obdurate's field. They never left. Commence shiplock, Crux instructed. Mark obdurate as non-recoverable. Ghost status. No pings. No future signals. Let it drift. Shutting down visual feed sync, Yarn replied. The ship would remain exactly where it was, an apparent wreck. No one would tow it. No one would dare. As the last Vicarian beacon sputtered out, Kerr sat motionless in the dim light of the control bay. Dross finally spoke. Sir, we've lost the fleet. Kerr didn't argue. He looked out the viewing panel toward the obdurate. The ship hadn't moved. No thrusters, no afterglow. Just the same drift pattern it had arrived with. But this time, everyone understood that drift wasn't due to damage. It was the end of choreography. Pull all obdurate telemetry from the external net. Route through locked core node. VASC-level access only. The voice command triggered a cascading shutdown across the internal feed towers inside Black Spire's secured substation. Encrypted data paths retracted from Earth's main defense grid. Redundant loops collapsed. The obdurate 000 file core flickered once, then buried itself under 12 levels of classified shielding. Thorn Vask stood alone in Subdeck 19. He hadn't moved since the first impact was confirmed. The room around him pulsed with diffused amber lighting. No direct bulbs, no surfaces to reflect. Just an old miner's cage, rebuilt for command necessity. The interface wall showed no ship diagrams, no fleet positions, just an empty grid with a blinking line of text. Operation complete. Status verified. He exhaled once, slow and steady. His hands rested on the back of the chair bolted to the center of the room. He never sat in it. Not during the planning. Not during the firing. Old reflex. Back when sitting meant dying slow under 6 tons of iron with no rig support. Vask reached for the override disc embedded in the floor plate. He turned it clockwise. The disc hissed upward, revealing a panel of old Earth-stamped hardware. Not digital, not automated, manual. He preferred switches that pushed back. The system accepted his biometric. Classified detachment purge ready, awaiting confirmation. The words waited for his hand, but his mind hadn't left the battlefield. Not yet. He closed his eyes. He wasn't in Subdeck 19 anymore. He was back in the upper rock corridors of Sura Station 9, back when drills jammed mid-cycle and coolant pipes snapped from vibration before you heard the crack. Back before Earth had fleets, or treaties, or ambassadors who came home in coffins. He was no officer then, just another disposable spine in a pressurized suit, surrounded by ores harder than fuel casings, and supervisors more interested in quotas than funerals. Back then, he'd learned how ships broke. He remembered watching a faulty supply rig shear through bulkhead rails because someone misread torque ratios. It split open like wet cloth. That image never left him. He used it. Every part of the obdurate was designed around that moment, not to destroy, to divide, to interrupt structure. He opened his eyes. The display blinked again. Confirmed system lockdown? He keyed the sequence. Confirmed. A knock echoed behind him. Physical. Rail Crux entered. No fanfare. No team. Just him, hands at his sides. It's done, Crux said plainly. Vask nodded once. I saw. Crux approached the side console. 46 ships neutralized. 4 vessels might drift for a cycle before core collapse. But they're irrelevant now. What about comscatter? Vask asked. Nothing left that could transmit, and we didn't touch a single relay outside target radius. Clean net. No trail. Vask didn't respond immediately. He looked over the now blank display, then turned his gaze to the steel walls that enclosed the chamber. No awards, no seals. Just purpose. You know what they'll say, Crux muttered. That Earth abandoned diplomacy? That we don't warn. Vask moved to the center of the chamber, beneath the faded engraving of the project's original title, GDT, Ghost Doctrine Trial. We warned them for years, he said. They just stopped listening. Crux didn't argue. You're purging the spec tree? He asked. All of it, Vask said, including the scaffolding data. No reverse engineering, no copies, no resurrection. Legacy drives? Only mine, and only until I don't need them. Crux studied the man a moment longer. then asked, "Was it enough?" Vask looked up. "I don't measure results by explosion size. I measure them by distance. The next fleet will stay farther away. That's the metric." Crux nodded. "And Earth? They won't be tested again. Not like this." The shutdown sequence engaged. Back in the command deck of Obdurate, AI core activity rolled into hibernation. No thermal dissipation, no broadcast leakage. The kinetic vault sealed itself behind an electromagnetically shielded coil, camouflaged as reactor salvage. To any future observer, the ship would appear as it had weeks before, wrecked, unarmed, void of history. That was the plan, not to show strength, to erase the idea that Earth ever needed to show it. Vask walked to the far wall. A single box sat on the side shelf, black casing, untouched since arrival. He opened it. Inside, a worn drill bit, still dust-caked from his final shift before conscription. The ridges were fractured, not from misuse, but from overuse. He stared at it. "Remember that?" Crux asked. Vask didn't look away. "My first kill." Crux tilted his head. "You crushed ore with it. I crushed a way out with it." He closed the box. Outside the orbital relay, Earth rotated beneath them, blue-gray, lined with dark belts from the recent storm grid cycles. No fanfare, no anthem, just gravity. As Crux turned to leave, he stopped by the exit panel. "One day, they'll ask what Obdurate really was?" Vask didn't move. "Let them ask. What do we tell them?" He finally turned, eyes steady. "We tell them it was a question." He reached up to the master node, locked the seal ring, and turned the core key. "Asked once. Broadcast window is live. Confirm the statement." Rail Crux stood in Earth's deep sky array control, index finger hovering over the send key. His voice carried no urgency, only exactness. The display above him showed nothing but static overlays across a fragmented starfield. Heads-up projections slicing through intercepted chatter from 36 sectors. Across the galaxy, transmission feeds boiled with unresolved data. Warped telemetry from broken ships. Panicked distress beacons repeating fragmentary IDs. Overlapping frequencies saturated with command officers yelling over systems that no longer obeyed. Names looped without rank. Coordinates were lost between coordinate echoes. He spoke again, slower. "Yarn, statement verified?" On the other end of the line, Yarn Vec didn't look away from his console. "Verified, 3 words. Global lock confirmed." Crux exhaled once and pressed the key. Every major comm grid, Vicarian, Macoran, Talon, and Neutral, received a single burst, no header, no encryption. Just Earth's identification code followed by the 3-word message. Engagement denied, complete. In the border zones, entire relay outposts went dark. The Macoran Diplomatic Corps pulled its observers back from human sectors within 48 hours. No formal protest was issued. No threat delivered. Their own skirmisher patrols along Terran routes vanished from sensor ranges without explanation. Talon merchant fleets rerouted without inquiry. Routes passed through older, riskier corridors to avoid Earth's edge territories. Even their war cruisers pivoted away from Earth-marked gravity wells. The Council of Systems demanded clarification. Earth didn't respond. No speech, no panel, no envoys. Only the wreckage. The last remaining Vicarian cruiser in orbit, scarred, unsalvageable, drifted beneath a cracked moon. Its comm deck was shredded. The helm was unmanned. Only one transmission leaked through the auxiliary line before the final relay bled out. It wasn't a ship. No source logged the rest. Black Spire's internal feeds logged it all. Commander Thorn Vask didn't attend any debriefing. He simply stood at the edge of the orbital control floor, one hand resting on the seal of the Ghost Doctrine terminal, watching the world below turn without notice. No banners, no celebrations. Earth had taught itself to move past victories quickly. This wasn't conquest. It was correction. He spoke once to Crux that day. "Do you hear any questions?" Crux shook his head. "Only new distance." "That's the measure," Vask replied. "Not applause." At the Galactic Embassy core near Leismark, a Zervani emissary asked a junior analyst a simple question. Did Earth ever explain what the Obdurate really was? The analyst blinked. No, he said. Did we ever ask them? The answer never came, because the room went quiet when Earth's three-word statement repeated across the open grid again, embedded in an unrelated trade frequency. Engagement denied, complete. The trade vessels in orbit rerouted that same hour. Talon War Archives updated their internal entries on Terran engagements. The record for the obdurate incident was tagged with three metadata codes: strategic misidentification, total fleet loss, human origin unknown. The last line was not a mistake, it was policy. If Earth never said the weapon was theirs, there would be no conflict to formalize, no war to declare, just absence. Within Earth's deep field array, Crux closed the final loop. The obdurate's ship signature was deleted from outbound registry logs, its location scrubbed from all active catalogs, its trajectory relisted as orbital debris with no historical flag. It wasn't just forgotten, it never existed. Only those who saw the rods fall remembered what drifted in Sargon IV's orbit, and they were no longer in command. In a small listening post on the edge of the Haleth corridor, a junior technician received an untagged data packet. No source, no prefix. He opened the file. It contained one frame, a fleet diagram, all Vicarian ships logged by hull signature. Everyone was marked with a red line. And in the corner, Earth's seal burned dimly. No caption, no timestamp, no threat. Just the mark of something that had stopped caring who asked. He didn't show it to his supervisor. He closed it, shut down the console, and requested reassignment. Back in Subdeck 19, Vask keyed in his final sequence. The core disk retracted into its casing. He didn't say a word. His job wasn't to announce what Earth had done. His job was to ensure no one thought Earth couldn't. Yarn's voice echoed once through the side panel. You sure you want the logs wiped? Yes. All of them. Vask nodded. If they want to know, they'll have to come ask. And if they do, we won't answer. The link closed. Somewhere far beyond Earth's rimline, a research vessel picked up a low-density object drifting near an asteroid belt. It looked like a freighter, damaged, pitted with micro-impacts, drifting unnaturally. It carried no energy signature, no ID. The ship didn't respond to pings. The crew debated boarding it. Then one of them noticed the name, barely legible, scorched into the starboard frame beneath streaks of carbon scoring. OBDURATE. The captain stared at the name, then made a decision. Mark it as unknown. We're not here for recovery. And just like that, the ship disappeared from the registry again. Back on Earth, in a small maintenance crawl beneath the control towers, an engineer flipped open a rusted drawer looking for a broken calibration tool. Inside, wedged between old parts, was a folded scrap of paper, handwritten. No date, no name, just 3 words. He turned it over and read them out loud once, quietly. Then he crumpled the paper, stuffed it in his pocket, and went back to work.